Libs of TikTok has been suspended from Facebook after making some controversial claims about Boston Children's Hospital, or at least that's what we think the suspension is for. Facebook did not actually give a reason, just said they violated community standards and that the matter has already been reviewed and cannot be reversed. So we want to get into this, Brianna. So we'll talk about substantively about it in a minute, but I think social media companies should give you more of a reason, and like this can't be reviewed. So we'll get into it. I do think Libs of TikTok, the account mischaracterized this video that they went viral that they had shared. Did they mischaracterize it more than things are just kind of commonly mischaracterized on social media? I'm not sure. I would absolutely be open to argument that this is kind of biased or heavy-handed moderation. And also they're not actually even being clear that this is the reason the page got in trouble. Now, so the page is suspended, so it's still there, but Libs of TikTok can't do anything with it. I think they can't log into it. They can't change it or modify it in any way. So we do want to play the video again that we think got them in trouble. So this is it on Twitter. The Libs of TikTok account had tweeted this. Libs of TikTok, by the way, for any of our audience members who don't know, but probably most of you know by now, is this conservative account that kind of takes videos on TikTok, often of teachers or of doctors who are on the progressive side of things, who are talking about transgender.
Cringe videos that display the excesses, I would argue, the most extreme kind of unsympathetic caricatures of what it is to be a liberal. And most of them, I would say a lot of it is true. It's videos that are posted by people.
Right, posted by the people. This is not Project Veritas type surreptitious recording of things these are things people shared publicly.
Yeah, it's more,
Libs of TikTok aggregates them and says, well, look, people, this is what.
It's like a window into what it is to be a quote unquote lib. Like, look, see, this is how crazy they are, is generally the vibe.
All right, so let's play this video.
Gender-affirming hysterectomy is very similar to most hysterectomies that occur. A hysterectomy itself is the removal of the uterus, the cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and the fallopian tubes, which are attached to the sides of the uterus. Some gender-affirming hysterectomies will also include the removal of the ovaries, but that's technically a separate procedure called a bilateral oophorectomy. And not every gender-affirming hysterectomy includes that, and people who are getting gender-affirming hysterectomies do not have to have their ovaries removed.
So the caption for that tweet that Libs of TikTok added says, Boston Children's Hospital is now offering gender-affirming hysterectomies for young girls. And it's the young girls part that is in contention. So nowhere, if you note in that clip, did she actually say young girls. I think the implication, people would think that means 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And according to the Boston Children's Hospital website, they're actually only offering it to 18-year-olds. Now, apparently, according to the Daily Caller, it was 17, and then there was an outcry, and now it's 18. So maybe you could, to me, maybe people will disagree. I would say there's not a huge difference if you're beyond, 16 is generally the age I personally think we should extend most rights to people to be able to consent to do various things. So as long as it's beyond that age, whether this is a good choice for many people pursuing it, I don't know, but I would substantially leave these decisions to the individual beyond that age. So whether it's 17 or 18 doesn't really matter to me. And to the extent they were implying it was younger than that, I do think that was very irresponsible on the part of this account.
Yeah, so this, even though I think that many of us have been warning about certain kinds of free speech overreaches, censorship overreaches, especially in the context of these media platforms that aren't subject to the same traditional First Amendment rules and don't have a lot of transparency, to your point, about why they make these censorship decisions. Even people who are leaning in that direction and who have been very critical of these platforms and their decision have said, I don't love this video and maybe Twitter should take it down because it misrepresents the content of the caption misrepresents.
But I think Twitter handled the
video so well. So just for specifically, Jesse Singal, who has gotten a lot of hot water over the years for writing articles about detransitioners, so people who transition and have gender affirming either surgeries or go on hormones or basically become come out as trans, deciding later in life that they no longer want to. They no longer see themselves as trans. He's gotten a lot of pushback from the trans community as a consequence of this, but he's coming out here kind of in defense of, I would argue, against this trans misinformation, saying, quote, I am very free speechy, but in a case like this where a big account posts a false claim that isn't even supported in the video, I absolutely think Twitter should take it down before it can spread further. Not saying Twitter should do this a lot, but sometimes yes.
So I don't know that they should take it down. Actually, I think the way Twitter handled this versus Facebook is better. So on the tweet of it, there's this Birdwatch, which is Twitter's fact-checking version, which is 1,000 times better than Facebook because it is just done by users. So users have just added clarifying. Other Twitter people have said, hey, here's a couple articles you can look at saying that actually, young women, we're talking about 17 or 18-year-olds. And there's a link to the Daily Caller article, which, again, so maybe they, you can criticize them if initially they said they did change it after the criticism from 17 to 18, according to this article. And that's something important to note. Whereas Facebook just freezes the account, doesn't give an explanation for why, and then has its independent. It's paid by Facebook ideological fact-checker organizations that I've criticized on the show a million times because I think they're just as often wrong as anyone else. Is not a good model, and Twitter is, I would argue, actually has the healthier model. Like, I'm not sure, because there are things that are wrong on social media all the time, and when the site itself. They can do it, it's their site, but makes itself the avatar of what is true on the platform in this very one-sided. It's only weighing in when there's something that or that the political right is saying that bothers sort of mainstream consensus, and it's only taking platform directed action. I think that's not necessarily a great policy.
Well, to be clear, the Libs of TikTok is locked out of the Facebook account. The Facebook account isn't shut down. You can still go and see. But do we know anything about whether it's a permanent lockout versus a temporary one?
Yes, permanent. That's what they said.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if there's any kind of appeals process there, because without giving a rationale, that is a significant hit to people's ability to, if you have a business, promote their business. If you have a political campaign, to promote your political campaign. These platforms really are instrumental to people's ability to communicate these days, the same way that shutting down someone's phone line would have an impact on their ability to communicate with the rest of the world. But I'm curious, at some point, I do think that we'd probably agree that there's some version of something that could be posted that should justify this kind of behavior. Would you?
It should justify what kind of behavior?
Either shutting down an account or pulling down a post. Do you think that's
certainly,
project?
Yeah. Well, and I think everyone draws that line a little bit differently. We all think that explicit calls to violence should be taken down by the platforms.
The law says that, but like in terms of our own personal feelings, some people are free speech absolutists and would like sites that would allow you to post anything, no matter how gruesome or targeting or harmful or.
I think if they put up somebody's phone number or home address and it's not like that phone number is listed already because they're a congressman and that phone number is listed publicly, that's fine. But if you just do that to some person's phone number or home address and you put that up, I think the platform should take that down, absolutely.
So the point I'm trying to get to, though, is if we work from the presumption that we all agree that some kind of censorship is appropriate, I do think that sometimes we should work back from that principle, because so many of these conversations end up being about, well, you just don't care about censorship and you love to shut people down. Well, okay, maybe this isn't it for you, but what is it? And then what does the protocol look like? What does the protocol look like to judge whether or not something meets the criteria? That's all I ever want. Sure. So many times, I don't need us to all agree on on what our personal values are, what we'd like to see, et cetera, et cetera. All I want to know is that there's some thought that's been put into this, and something written, something codified that we can all reason back from when these instances emerge.
But the platforms don't do that, right? They're so bad at this. They're so reactive. They get screamed at by, and the kinds of people they listen to are disproportionately likely to be Team Blue voices or mainstream media figures or progressive accounts who are like, why is this up? Oh my God, this is inviting harassment against whoever my disenfranchised group is, and then the platform springs into action to do something about that. That's a very one-sided kind of pressure they face.
It's interesting. You mentioned in a segment we did last week that you're not wild about libel defamation laws, generally speaking, but there is an argument here that the way that someone should take care of this, in the same way, what were we talking about? Was it? It was the Alex Jones lawsuit. That the way to take care of some of these people who put out misinformation that ends up targeting and harassing people. It's just for the subjects of that targeting and harassment to file suit. And there's a world where maybe the platform doesn't intervene, but the Boston Children's Hospital brings a lawsuit and gets something like this taken down. I think the only concern with relying on that kind of a legal avenue is that a lot of people who might be targeted don't have the resources that, say, the Boston Children's Hospital probably does to file a lawsuit and to act with enough speed to prevent some of the worst harms of the misinformation from occurring.
I mean, I don't know. Well, that's certainly true, but in these specific cases we're talking about, you could probably find an advocacy group that will help you out. Maybe they might be interested in taking on these fights. Not in every
case.
What's the
ACLU up to these days?
Or the Human Rights Campaign or something? Or I don't know. All these groups are just concentrated on electing Hillary Clinton or something. I don't know.
Yeah, writing letters for Amber Heard. Sorry, I know. I have mixed feelings about that one.
All right, tomorrow on Rising, we'll hand over the baton to Ryan Grimm and Emily Jashinsky, and they're going to have a deep dive discussion with molecular biologist Alina Chan about the latest on the lab leak theory.
Sounds interesting. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Well, it was a fun day. It was good to be back in studio, and we matched today inadvertently.
We got our act together.
We got our act together finally. See, we're back on screen. It was totally accidental.
Tune in next week to see if we can keep this magic alive.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.